Chapter 1. The Velvet Room. Bill wasn't looking for trouble, just a drink and silence after a long workday. He found the opposite in El Escondido, a speakeasy bar wrapped in red velvet, gold rope, and shadows that pulsed with slow jazz. She sat at the end of the bar, Jenny, in a black silk dress with a slit up to her thigh, red lips like a promise. "You look lost," she said without turning her head. "Maybe I am. Barcelona has a way of finding your desires," she said. "If you stop pretending you don't have any." She wore a choker, not just fashion, a signal. Bill's breath hitched. "Care to dance?" she asked. He followed her, heartbeat thudding like bass. Her fingers lingered at his wrist longer than needed, and when she leaned close, her lips just barely grazed his ear. "I like men who let go slowly, one button at a time." Chapter 2. Red Leather and Rules. They met again the next night. She invited him to a private loft. "Rules first," she said, pulling out a small leather-bound book. "No touching without permission. No rushin. No apologies for wanting."
His mouth went dry.
"You do this often?" "I do this right," she replied, slipping off her coat to reveal red leather corsetry, delicate restraints at her thighs. Bill didn't realize how much tension he carried until she told him to kneel and simply breathe. That night, he learned about soft domination, silk rope, and how desire wasn't just in the act, but in the anticipation. Jenny didn't just touch his skin. She read his reactions. She taught his body new languages. Chapter 3. The Balcony Ritual. Barcelona shimmered below their high-rise terrace. Jenny wore a mask and heels, nothing else. "Tonight, you don't speak unless I tell you to," she purred, placing cuffs in his hand. He exhaled sharply. She tied his wrists gently behind the terrace doorframe. Cool air kissed his skin. Cars passed below, unaware of the private ritual above. Every stroke of her hand, every whisper of leather against skin, lit fires across his chest. When she finally allowed him release, his entire body trembled from surrender, not weakness. And when she kissed him after, slow and grateful, it felt more intimate than anything else. "You did so well," she said. "You let go." Chapter 4. Underneath it all, in daylight, they were surprisingly simple. Coffee in Gothic quarter cafes, art museums, laughter. But at night, the tension returned like electricity, and in it, tenderness. They experimented, blindfolds, temperature play, even sensory deprivation. Bill opened, Jenny softened. They stopped hiding their real lives. She danced for a queer cabaret group. He admitted he'd never felt this free before. He tied her one night, with her guidance, hands trembling. "I trust you," she said. That night, the power shifted. He wasn't just submitting anymore. He was claiming her, with gentleness, with reverence. Chapter 5. The Mass Club. Jenny brought him to a private fetish club hidden behind a florist shop. Red velvet halls, gold mirrors, consent and pleasure written in every glance. She wore a full-body mesh catsuit. He wore a collar she clipped to her finger. They played. They watched. They were watched. She made him kiss her boots. He made her gasp with just a whisper and his mouth on her thigh in the dark. Afterwards, lying in a room filled with mirrors, she whispered, "No one's ever made me feel this scene." Chapter 6. Afterglow. Their last night together before Bill's contract ended.
No roleplay, no toys.
Just skin, hands, emotion. He traced every inch of her, saying thank you in the only way his body knew. She cried when she came, not from pain, but from something deeper. Release. Connection. "Stay," she whispered. He kissed her forehead. "Let's make a plan." 3 months later, he returned, not for a project, for her. She met him at the airport, leash in hand, grin, unapologetic. I've been waiting to break in a new collar. Bill took her hand, kissed it, and said, "Lead the way." Chapter 7. The Green-Eyed Night. The evening started simple: tapas, sangria, jazz on a rooftop. But then a man from Jenny's past showed up at the bar. Tall, smooth, clearly aware of what they used to share. Bill stiffened as the man kissed Jenny's cheek and whispered, "Still playing?" Later that night, in their apartment, tension hung thick. "Do you miss that world?" Bill asked, voice low. Jenny walked up to him, wrapped the collar around her own neck, and placed the leash in his palm. "I only miss it when I don't have you." That night, she submitted completely. And for the first time, Bill didn't just dominate. He owned the space between their bodies and souls. Chapter 8. The Bound Trust. Jenny asked him to tie her down in a suspension frame she'd been building in their playroom. "Fully?" he asked, nervous but eager.
Fully.
"I trust you." He took his time, rope sliding across skin, breath sinking to knots. She was vulnerable, quiet, radiant. When he stepped back and looked at her, arms suspended, body bare, eyes closed, he whispered, "You've never looked more powerful." He kissed her slowly, from foot to collarbone, worshiping her. The release wasn't just physical. It was a surrender to love wrapped in rope. Chapter 9. Fire and Ice. They explored contrast next. Hot wax, ice cubes, velvet floggers, and sudden pinches. Jenny wrote "yours" on his chest in candle wax. He returned the favor by bringing her to the edge, over and over until she begged. "No one else," she whispered against his lips. "Only me," he replied. That night, they slept tangled and sore, smiling, truly at peace. Chapter 10. The Safe Word. Their first real fight came after Bill canceled a session last minute, forgetting how much prep Jenny had done. "You're starting to treat this like a hobby," she said, hurt in her voice. "It's not. I'm just tired. It's more than a game for me." They sat in silence. Then Bill reached into their drawer and took out their shared journal, where they wrote desires, limits, dreams. "I forgot what this means to you, to us." They spent that night not playing, but talking, naked, raw, wrapped in blankets. "I don't need control," she said. "I need consistency. And I need to remember how to deserve you," he whispered. Chapter 11. The Mirror Ceremony. Jenny blindfolded him, took his hand, led him to a room filled with mirrors and candles. When the blindfold came off, she was kneeling, fully bare, her collar open in her palms. "I want you to lock it." Bill stepped forward, trembling. "This isn't about a scene," she said. "This is devotion. From me to you." He clicked the lock closed, then kissed her forehead. "You are mine," he said. She smiled. "And you're mine, always." That night, their play wasn't just kink. It was sacred. Their moans echoed off glass. Their bodies moved in rhythm with everything they'd become. Not players, not tourists in desire, but partners bound by trust, lust, and something terrifyingly beautiful. Chapter 12. One apartment, two worlds. Living together felt like its own kind of intimacy, not always romantic. Gwen liked silence while she painted. Ben played jazz too loud while he worked. He forgot to close drawers. She forgot to eat when she created. One morning, after a small fight over laundry, Gwen burst out, "I need space sometimes." Ben looked wounded. "I'm not trying to take anything. I just want to be let in." That night, she crawled into bed beside him and whispered, "Then let's make space and share it." His arms wrapped around her. No apology needed, only presence. Chapter 13. The Stranger's Touch. At a masquerade art event, Gwen wore a silk mask and a backless dress. Ben didn't recognize her at first, just felt drawn to the woman on the balcony, sipping champagne like she was waiting to be ruined. He approached, said nothing, and she turned, smiled. They didn't break character. He took her hand, danced with her, brushed his lips against her neck. "Your man's lucky," he whispered. "I hope he remembers that tonight." Back home, they tore each other's clothes off like strangers desperate to make a mistake. Only it wasn't one. It was a memory they created together. Chapter 14, Fracture. Ben's father fell ill in the UK. He flew home for several weeks. Gwen didn't go with him. They called, they texted, but the time apart grew sharp. She missed his touch. He missed her scent in his clothes. When he returned, things felt quieter. They had sex that night, but it felt more like comfort than fire. Afterward, Gwen sat up and said, "Are we losing us?" Ben stared at the ceiling. "Only if we pretend this is easy." She took his hand. "Then let's not pretend. Let's fight for real." Chapter 15, Stormlight. They traveled to Iceland in winter, chasing light, chasing each other. Under the northern lights, Ben dropped to one knee.
No rings.
"Just a question." She laughed through her scarf. "You're doing this in the snow? I want your yes, not perfection." She pulled him up by the collar and kissed him like the sky was burning. Yes. That night, they lay wrapped in fur blankets, naked, their bodies warming each other against the cold. And as snow fell against the windows, they made love like explorers, slow, brave, reverent. Chapter 16, Home, finally. They settled in a new flat in Montmartre, not far from where it all began. There was art, music,
Coffee.
sex on the rug, arguments about curtains, laughter in the kitchen. They were no longer firework. They were flame, steady, glowing. On an ordinary Tuesday, Ben looked at Gwen as she sketched by the window and said, "You make love feel like home." She turned, smiled, and pulled him into a kiss that tasted like years ahead.